Alrighty then. So has anyone got any questions they would like to ask to start us off? Oh, quiet. Okay. Alice, I know you had a question.
I did. I guess, you know, when you're really ill, you start with things like meditation and visualization, and because that's much better than the ugly thoughts that are in your head. And so that's a, you know, that's a really good step. But I'm kind of moving into kind of being and doing, and it seems to be a different stage. Where I'm getting nudged that visualization and meditation isn't good enough yet anymore. I'm supposed to be actively, we live in a physical universe, so I should be doing some physical things to show that I'm the real deal now.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So I wondered what your thoughts were about that.
Yeah, so meditation and beingness and kind of presence and being in the now are kind of all part of that same package. And what tends to happen is that we tend to compartmentalize being and doing, right? We say there's two separate things. And so we say, well, when we meditate, we're kind of being, and then we just stop that. And then we go out and we do. But meditation's kind of one of its purposes is to take that presence, take that beingness, take that peace, take that bliss, and to bring it with you into your day. So there's rather than separating the being and the doing, the ideal is that we are doing from a sense of being. So the being is kind of the basis, and then from that beingness springs what we need to do. So what usually happens is, because we separate them, we are lovely being present people in our meditation, and then the doing seems so unconnected to us that we just do stuff that is not aligned to who we are, what we want, what we need to do, what we need to prioritize. So because we compartmentalize it, it kind of ends up often in an imbalance in our lives. We're either doing or we're being, and we've separated them. But if we put them together and we say, well, doing must come out of beingness. So what does it truly feel like is the most important thing for me to do right now? Is different to going, I've got all these things to do. I'm just going to do all of them, right? And then you get really stressy as well. So putting the being and the doing together is really important. And you're right as well by there's a lot of the good reasons why you have to take action, not just say you're going to take action or think I'm going to take action. There is true power in choice and aligned action. Okay, so aligned action meaning it is in alignment with something. Well, what's it in alignment with? It's in alignment with your highest good or your highest ideals or whatever it is you wish for yourself in the world. You're not just taking any action, you're taking aligned action. And there's a lot of power in taking action that is aligned for the purposes of proving to your subconscious mind, who is usually your enemy when you're trying to do something new or change behavior or go for something you really love. And the subconscious mind can hear you say, oh, like, I want to start my own business. But until you take an action, it doesn't believe you. So we'll keep fighting you and fighting you and fighting you and fighting you. But if you actually take the action, like any action that is aligned to what you say you want, every single day, it stops fighting you because it can see that you're doing it. You're doing it anyway.
Right.
Right?
Well, one of the things from your lovely meditation that I listened to, I found out that I was, I had this being scared of responsibility. And I can see that because before I got sick, I was doing way too much. Single parent of 4 kids, 4 teenagers, and 3 jobs and, you know, and pets and wanting to try even start a new business on top of that. And so I looked at it and it was like, oh, you're scared that you're going to do, if you get well, you're going to start doing that again. And so I'm trying to figure out how to prove to my body that no, that's not the plan this time. This time we're doing it quite different. And so now you're talking about that the aligned action, and I can see that because I wasn't taking aligned action before. I was just in survival mode. I was just trying to feed my family. Yeah. And figure things out that, you know, in the spare 5 minutes I had in there somewhere. And so this is a total different switch around. And so now I have to convince my subconscious that we're not going to do that anymore. We're not running around like a chicken with its head cut off this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Alice, I'm going to just carry on with this conversation. I just want to check in with Harold. Harold, can you hear us? Are you okay? I can't hear you if you're answering. Harold, if you have the same problem as you had last month, just write comments or put your hand up via the comments box, because we can't hear you if you are speaking. So type in comments like you did last month, okay?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yay! We can hear you now. Okay.
No, I'm new to all this Zoom thing, so you got a bit of finger trouble, that's all.
You're doing good then, you're doing good.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so just in response to that, Alice, as well, I think you're absolutely right. You know, we just take, you know, when we take a lot of action, we feel really good and we think, oh, I'm taking lots of action. But the problem with taking a lot of action that isn't aligned is we wear ourselves out and we stress ourselves out, and that doesn't accomplish our goal. Right. And so that's the reason why we say aligned action, because it is really easy. The mind is so clever, right? If it doesn't want to do something and it's trying to put you off because it's trying to protect you and say, oh no, this dream you have is too scary, it will distract you with busyness. It will distract you with give you lots of other things to do. And then you think you're moving towards your goal, and then you feel like, no, actually, I'm just like treading water, and why after all this effort is nothing really coming from this? And it's a trick of the ego mind to go, oh well, let's keep her busy. Then she feels like she's doing something, but it gets really, then you get to a point and you're really frustrated and you're like, I've put so much effort in, why am I not getting the results I want from my business or my work or the promotion or whatever? And it's because it's not really aligned action. So it's really about kind of saying, well, what's my goal, or what do I want to do? And then sort of seeing where you are now and kind of going, well, what's the next most obvious step that I can do? Or what one small thing can I do today or repeat if I need to create a habit? Or what do I need to do to move it along? What one thing will move me along the most? And does that feel good? And check in with yourself. Does that feel nice? Does that feel good? Does it feel true? And if it does, then off you go. And if it doesn't, ask again and see if there's something else there. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I'm really looking to make a balanced life this time.
Yeah. The balanced life is yeah, balance is good. But I would say the balance is a real trial and error. So don't beat yourself up if you don't achieve the balance straight away. It's often a negotiation.
Right.
So does anyone else want to comment on that? Does anyone else have that as well?
Yeah, I've lived that, as you and I well know.
Yeah.
Many years, and that balance and busying, and so I can associate with that, Alice. So yeah, definitely. Busying is. Like myself, I went to speak to you recently, Sharon. Obviously, we okay to talk about that.
Yeah.
Self-pressure, and it's all wanting to. It's out of alignment basically, and it's not in line with my meditation. So yeah, it's kind of compartmentalising. Yeah, it makes total sense. Because when I do go into things calm and you wait for them to actually to appear when they're meant to appear, you kind of, it works really well and it flows. Everything just clicks into place as opposed to forcing and pushing and doing egocentrical things. So it's good. It's definitely along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, I mean, this is a theme that's kind of coming up again, and it comes up, you know, through every year as well, but at the moment it's come up again, and that is the subject of resistance. You know, when we're resisting something, it takes a lot of our energy up. Where, you know, you sort of think, oh, I should do that. You don't really want to do it. And then you kind of end up procrastinating because you don't want to do it, and then you do think, oh, I should do it, and you end up with like this amazing amount of energy being used up resisting the stuff that you know is good for you and doing the stuff that you know you don't want to do. And so, you know, if we have sort of clarity within ourselves and kind of go, and you know, you have to sometimes sit down and find that clarity, right? You can either through meditation or journaling or through, you know, any of the lovely processes that you can do. It's just kind of question and say, you know, what is it that I truly want to do next? What is it that's going to give me the greatest joy? Because anything that you do out of joy, love, peace, kind of acceptance, you know, all the good stuff, you know, self-love, you know, those things are of the highest vibration. And so, you know, they often are the kind of things that ease it through. So you're kind of doing it out of love rather than you're doing it out, you know, self-love as well, rather than out of someone else's idea of what you should be doing. And so let me try and think. Like an example of that would be, and again, this is mindset rather than, you know, the mindset that starts off the action is, you know, why do I want to do this work? Well, I want to do this work because you know, I feel this love, and I feel like I want to, you know, prevent other people from the pain that I've experienced or suffered. So you help teach or, you know, guide or, you know, support, whatever it may be. And so you start from that point and go, well, how can I help? How can I be of service? You know, what can I offer them? And that's an act of self-love to you because you're following your path, and it's also an act of love for the other people because you're doing the work out of love. So it's kind of nice to just always kind of go back and refocus as to why you're taking action. You know, what is it that you want to contribute to the world? Contribute rather than take from the world is a much easier process of putting things out into the world than if you're thinking of it from what can I get out of it?
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else got any questions? Anything that's been coming up recently that's been bugging them? Yeah, okay. Well, if anything comes to mind, you can just you can say. So then I will talk a little bit about the idea of being uncomfortable. Because this is definitely a theme for 2020. So if you saw my newsletter as well, this is a huge theme for 2020, is learning to be okay with being uncomfortable. And that can be emotional uncomfortable, physical uncomfortable, mental uncomfortable, or all of them combined. You know, because the thing is, most of us try and avoid discomfort at all costs, right? Or we tend to choose what we are willing to feel uncomfortable about. But I think 2020 has been one of those years whereby we're not really getting to choose. We've kind of been given things that we feel uncomfortable about and being told, okay, this is uncomfortable, here you go. How do you feel about this? Do you agree with that? Do you feel like it's been an uncomfortable year?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. But from a spiritual perspective, the discomfort is intentional. It's an intentional thing that we are learning to navigate through. So just so I can have a show of hands, so I can just see, so I don't repeat myself. Who's watched the video on the newsletter? It's okay if you haven't. Otherwise I'll repeat it if you haven't. Okay, all right. So So basically, in 2020, we are being asked to be okay with being uncomfortable, right? Emotionally, mentally, and physically. And the reason is that we've got very dualistic ways of thinking. We either think something is right and wrong, good or bad, you know, black or white, and we kind of don't tend to see all the other options in the middle. So this is the way we've kind of, society is kind of been based on. It comes out of religion especially as well, right and wrong, saint, sinner, that kind of thing. And so we're not very good with actually holding lots of options to be available to us. And so, like, COVID is a perfect example of this. Like, I cannot begin to tell you how many times people have said to me this year, like, it's a bit like going a bit mad. It's like 1 minute masks don't work, no point in wearing them, then we should wear them, then wear them indoors, and then it's like you don't have to. And it's like, well, how can I hold all of this and know what's right, right? And that's the thing, we're so used to saying we want to know what is right and what is wrong. And when there is so much conflicting information out there, you know, although there can be a consensus, like, you know, we might all agree that masks are fine here, but, you know, we could go to a Trump rally and they'll all say no, right? So, you know, it's all right in our bubbles where we may all agree. But, you know, there's a lot of people who, you know, there is lots of information out there. And so it can be really uncomfortable to not have clarity on a lot of subjects. And 2020 is one of those years where there's not a lot of clarity on anything. There's so many perspectives, like so many perspectives that come up. And, you know, even with like Black Lives Matter, so someone said something about a football team, they were quite racist, and it was my team that I support, it was Arsenal, so some fans said something racist. So I responded in response to this other person saying, that's terrible, this is my team, and it's not acceptable. And then this person piled in, because I didn't recognise the racist term, piled in and started having a go at me for my privilege. And I'm like, you do realise I'm not white, right? You do realise that I'm Asian and I grew up in the work. And he sort of accused me, and he's a white guy. And I'm like, I'm not getting a lecture on, you know, on privilege from a white person for a start. And it was really funny because, and I know when I said, I like you very much, but like, you really picked the wrong fight. And this to me was a great example of, he sort of went, sorry, great learning curve, I understand. And I was like, it's because people don't quite know how to respond anymore, because there's so much stuff going on and there's so many things to consider that sometimes it's quite hard to know what's my path amongst all of this. Who am I amongst all of this? What am I choosing? What do I know to be true for myself amongst all of this? And that is part of the reason it's there, so that we can center ourselves and say, you know, there's all this information, there's some truth there, there's some truth there, nothing holds not one thing holds the truth. There's lots of truth in lots of places, and there's also lies in lots of places. And so then it's like, well, let's just hold all of that and still walk my path. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really weird state to be in, because I know a lot of people who have been sort of saying to me, you know, we've got this COVID thing, but then they're still thinking about the climate crisis. And on one hand, they're optimistic, and if we can just manage to change things, it can get better. And then the other side of it is like all doom and gloom, and they can't marry the two of them. And it's really hard to marry what's going to happen in the future, because we've still got COVID going on. We've got all these things. There's lots of upset and uprising as well. And so it's like, how do we hold, and this is what we're being asked. You've got to try and hold it all and accept the fact that there are lots of things here, and it's all okay. We don't have to decide all the time what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad. It's taking us out of judgment and giving us an opportunity to start saying, well, I can integrate bits of this. I can take a bit from here and take a bit from here. And then what feels true to me, and that's the path I'm walking. And let everyone else figure it out for themselves.
Yeah.
Surely, Sharon, you've got to believe in yourself to begin with.
Yes, yes, for sure. Do you want to say some more on that, Harold?
Well, if you believe in yourself, you look at the facts, you make your own mind up, because that's the power you've been given. Each of us are unique in our situation. We're an individual creation, and you've got everything you need to back it up. You don't really need to go around looking for everybody else says, how do we do this and how do we do that? You use your mind to work it out. Admittedly, you take all the information around you to get the answer, but it's up to you to actually have faith in yourself and come up and say, that's the path I'm on.
Yeah, that's a brilliant, I love what you just said there. It's faith in yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're not encouraged to have faith in ourselves. We're encouraged to have faith in others. So, yeah, absolutely.
Society, it's like putting a bag over your head. It's making you feel as though you need somebody else. You need the government, you need a politician, you need football, you need the soaps to exist, but you don't. You've got to know what your purpose is here. Your brain, or not just your brain, your mind is the most powerful thing in existence for you. Everything you see is your mind, it's the interpretation of your mind. And if you don't control your mind, you can't make sense of what's out there.
No, and that's another really good point there, Harold. It's about taking control of your mind.
Yeah.
Because and not letting it run amok with all the fears and all the mistruths, right? Yeah. But sometimes it takes a bit of practice. Like I would say I know my mind quite well, but even I have been swinging between let's stay safe and no, it's fine. You know, COVID, it's like I wear my mask because I'm a conscientious person. But, you know, it's like, shall we meet people? Shall we not? Shall we do this? Shall we not? And it's like, 1 minute. And the next minute it's like, do I need to do that? Is that something I actually want to do? You know, and it feels like sometimes you're swinging between 2 points.
Yeah, but you are allowed to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Life doesn't have to be black and white. You can't say, I'll have an ice cream and it's not good for me, but blow it, I'll have it. You know.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely fine. I agree. It's just, you know, for some people, I've noticed that then that's what causes the discomfort, is not having that, being able to clearly say, yes, that's the right thing to do. No, that's the wrong thing to do. And we're coming out of an era of being able to do that. So, you know, I always say, like, it's better to try and get on board with this idea of non-dualistic thinking, always realizing that there's a spectrum of perspectives, and you know, often there's a little bit of truth in everything that you hear. It's not not everything, but like a lot of things. And so, you know, it's really, you know, we are going to become seekers of truth, really, because with so much misinformation and so much information, just a bombardment of information as well, you know, if we just accept that there is truth in lots of places, then we don't have to keep judging everyone and everything and just like, well, everyone's got to walk their own path, you know, because the one or the other creates a judgment usually. And that's also part of separation from a spiritual perspective. We create a sense of separation from other human beings by saying, you're not wearing a mask, you shouldn't wear a mask, you are wearing a mask, you know, it's just, everyone turns really judgy when there's only 2 options, when there's only 2 things that people can see. So, you know, I think we're going into an era of, you know, it's going to be a bit uncomfortable for us for a long time. You know, I've been practicing being okay with discomfort for about 2 or 3 years just to get in practice for 2020. You know, and I've been doing it in lots of different ways, and one of them is hot cold showers. And I really don't like the cold, but I've been doing it for about a year now.
Well, having cold showers?
Yeah, so 20 seconds of cold, 10 seconds of hot for 5 minutes. It's supposedly the optimum for your metabolism, your vagus nerve as well. And you switch between 20 and 10 seconds for about 5 minutes, and the contrast is really good. You
don't stand on one foot.
Sorry?
You don't just stand on one foot then.
Sometimes I wish I was standing on one foot. So I'm actually upping that, because at the moment I'm literally about to post a blog tomorrow on it.
You're just saving on your heating bill.
Well, cold shower, hot and cold, the contrast of hot and cold, the Nordic people do it all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's go into a sauna and then get into an ice bath. They've known the health benefits of that, but, we don't really want to do it because it's really uncomfortable. I've been offered to do it, and actually at the end of last winter, I was going in the sauna and then going into cold water, like cold showers, deliberately for the first time in my life. And I have to keep saying to myself, I'm choosing this, I'm choosing this, I'm choosing it, because I have to choose it in order to be okay with it. Otherwise, go, I don't want it. It's the power of choice to choose discomfort is actually very empowering, like you're choosing.
Yeah.
Isn't the choice side as well? You don't have to put yourself in one category or the other, right? You can just sit with that uncomfortableness and just go, well, I'm not forced to make a decision, so the choice is sit with it and wait to see how it unfolds itself, so don't put all your energy into one thing or the other, and just observe as opposed to being in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's great power in not getting it. What you're describing as well is a form of detachment, right? And staying a bit more neutral and not being reactive to everything that comes up and having to choose between one or the other. Is that what
every argument and because that is energy draining, right? So it's kind of seeing for what it is and watch it pass, and then when you feel the truth, you know the truth anyway. So yeah, catch 22 with the masks though, because you kind of, like you say, is if but maybe, is it right, wrong, and it's going to be different each day to day, isn't it? Moral decision. Yeah.
I guess it also depends on what you're listening to. It depends on how you feel about it.
So,
I do find it quite amusing though when people say like, oh, masks, we can't breathe, you're trying to kill us and suffocate us because we can't breathe. And it's like, well, so you go and have surgery and the person who's doing the really intricate operation on you has got a mask on and they're lacking oxygen, are they? when they're doing surgery on you. It's like, no, I don't think so. Like, you need to think of a different argument for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's coming up to but just gone past half past. So what we could do is do the vagus nerve healing process. And if there's any more questions at the end there, we can go to that. But is there anything else that's kind of come up that anyone wants to bring up? No? Okay, cool. Okay, so.
Hang on, Sharon, just a quickie.
Yes.
Do you know when you do your healing, right? And you're focusing on how long do you actually focus on the objective you're going for? Because I remember reading somewhere somebody was healing, and then they fell asleep, and yet the person who was receiving the healing said it was the best session they'd had. Yet the person who'd fallen asleep must have stopped sort of sending healing. So how long do you think you really have to send healing for?
That's a really good question. So let me start with, like, on a professional level, most sessions, if you were paying for a session, would be an hour long, right? That's just kind of the standardized idea of how long a session is.
Yeah.
Okay? Can you do it for less? Yes.
Can you hold your concentration for an hour?
Yeah, so let me explain. So the person who fell asleep, they may have just had a very strong intention. So we don't have to be necessarily conscious to give healing and also to receive it. But I think if you're offering it, then you should try and stay conscious, right? But the person receiving it doesn't have to stay awake.
No, that's fair enough, yeah.
Right, because it's on the energetic level. So the person who is offering the healing what we do first is we set an intention for what we want from the energy to how we want the energy to work, what we want it to work on, what will hold a positive outcome for the person we're working with.
Yeah.
So that intention always comes first before we bring any energy in. So if that person who fell asleep while they gave it, I mean, I've been a bit drowsy. If I haven't had a client with me and I've been doing it for a friend or like a family member,
Yeah.
and I've been doing it by myself, I've half drifted off and had to bring myself back. That's why the quantum touch technique has got like a body sweep in it. It's to ground you, to keep you focused, is to keep you present. And like something like Reiki doesn't have a grounding technique, so you're not really, but if you're doing quantum touch, you're keeping yourself grounded, you're keeping yourself present and quite focused. So, you know, I often say to people, that's one of the nice things about quantum touch that they don't really publicize, but it teaches you to be really present. So in an hour session, and when I am focused on somebody, I am totally present with them. I have no other thoughts in my mind. I'm not focusing on what I'm eating later on. I'm not doing anything else. I'm 100% focused on that person to make sure that they're getting everything that they need. So and also the way that I do quantum touch is the energy is doing the work, but I often talk to the subconscious mind. So it's quite an active session often. I'm listening into the subconscious mind. There might be a mantra, there might be an affirmation or something that is like active in the session. So because I'm asking the mind and the body what's really going on here, I'm fully focused on them. Do you need it for everybody? It depends on how much someone is able to receive. So will we say in quantum touch, you know, animals, children, and people who aren't really used to healing energy, you might want to start with less time. And if the body doesn't want to take the energy, it's too much, it will stop. It'll say it's full and it doesn't want any more. So I would say an hour is an average that we give everybody, but you don't have to do an hour. If you're doing it for friends or family or yourself, do it for whatever feels most comfortable. And if you feel like you can't stay focused for that long, then don't do it for that long. Do it for how long you feel you can stay focused for. Does that answer the question?
In a way, yeah. But what was I thinking about? If you're giving healing for somebody, would you focus on a general healing intention, or say something like a heart condition? Would you try and focus on heart energy?
If I was working on someone's heart and they had a heart condition, I would set an intention for the physical aspect.
Yeah.
But I would also then set an intention around opening up the heart from an energetic standpoint and from a loving standpoint. And then I would, when you say like focus, like when you do kind of quantum touch, you may be sort of putting in a field of energy. So the field of energy may start at the heart. That's the most, if someone's got a heart condition, that's where you would start, right?
Yeah.
But then it may be that although the heart is the most obvious place, there may be some stress, there may be some sense of responsibility. So actually there may be the focus would move from the heart and it would move to like the shoulders if they've got a burden of responsibility, or if they've got lots of stress, you might move to the head and put energy around the head. Or you might hear something that comes up from the subconscious mind and it might infer somewhere else, either emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or physically. So that focus, the focus is still on that person because that's the person you're helping. But where you focus and how you focus will very much depend on what comes up from that person's mind, body, spirit. Does that answer it?
Yeah, I think so.
You don't sound convinced.
No, it's not that. I'm just wondering how it would work with somebody who almost like didn't believe in it. But you think, well, yeah, I need to try this on you to try and help you, but they don't really believe in it.
So a person doesn't have to believe in it for it to work. The only thing they have to not do is block the energy.
Yeah, that's the problem, you know.
So you can't, so quantum touch and all forms of healing is not based on force. It's based on love, right? Why would you want to offer some energy? And what is the energy that heals? The energy that heals is love. So you can't force it on somebody, right? You can't force your love onto someone. Then it's force, it's not healing.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we want to do something to help someone, that's a really nice thing. But if they are not able or willing or wanting to receive it, then their body will just reject the energy. And if that's the case, then you have to love them enough to let them follow their own path on their healing journey.
That makes sense.
You know, and sometimes, you know, people do block it. My father-in-law, I've tried twice with him. He's actually even asked me for healing and then blocks it. And I'm just wasting my time now. I'm not doing it anymore.
See,
but everyone else in my family receive it really wonderfully. But
because
he doesn't want it.
No, but the way I understand healing, if you had, say, 10 people in a room and one of them wanted the healing, but the other 9 were disbelievers, those other 9 could ruin the session just by their negative beliefs.
So my answer to that would be, that's a yes and no answer. So whoever holds the highest vibration, the most, well, not even highest, but the dominant vibration through resonance and entrainment, that they have to come up to you, or you come down to them, or you meet in the middle. So even if you've got 10 people or 100 people, if you can hold that vibration of love, then there should be no reason. The numbers are irrelevant. If you've got the most dominant vibration, you can hold that still, and then they have to come up to meet you, or you kind of end up, they drag you down a little bit. But what you don't want to do is to come right down to their level, right? Ultimately, it's a bit like if you had, instead of 9 negative people, if you had 9 people in the room who believed in the power of prayer, and then there was one person there, then yes, that would elevate it. And yes, if they're negative, it would be it would definitely try and bring it down. But it doesn't have to. And I think you have to put faith in the fact that higher vibration is more powerful than negative. Sometimes it feels that negative vibration is more powerful, but it's not. Love, peace, and joy are the highest power states that we have as human beings. Love, peace, and joy are the top 3. So although it feels like they're more powerful, they're not. But unless you believe and you collude with that idea and you think that they are, then that's the ability for them to help make you drop your vibration. But ultimately, you can still work with somebody in a negative environment. Like you could even change the energy in the room to match your vibration. Those people are then sitting in that energy, which is the loving energy, and then you would work on that person. You could even put a circle around them energetically if they're being really negative, and contain their energy, and you can just work on the other person. There's a lot of things you can do.
Oh, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Anything else? Anyone want to comment on that, or anyone got any questions from that? No. Okay. Vagus nerve. Okay. So we're going to do vagus nerve reconnection, and so just as I said a very little about it at the beginning, but just to go over it, because I think Harold was missing, and I don't know if Tristan heard it either. But so the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. It goes from your brain stem, so from your limbic brain, from back here, past your heart on one side and down to your digestion, so all your major organs. It covers all your major organs effectively. And then there's another branch that comes around and does facial recognition, and eyes, nose, and mouth when you smile and things like that, right? And the reason is that it's part of your stress mechanism. So it's part of your fight, flight, and freeze mechanism. And, you know, the facial part is that when you are relaxed, you'll smile and people will know that you are open for social contact and connection, right? When you're stressed, your face might not be smiling. And because you're stressed, you might not be open for conversation and relaxation. As we well know, when we're stressed, we get a bit more grumpy and moody, and we don't really feel like socializing, right, necessarily. So there's two parts of your kind of your vagus nerve. One goes towards the social side that people can recognize if you're available for connection, and the rest of it is just goes through all your major internal organs. So I sort of said it at the beginning of the call, you've got your brain up here, you've got your heart brain, which has a massive electromagnetic field, and then you've got your gut, which everyone calls now is the third brain, right? So lots of illnesses like Alzheimer's, even Parkinson's, a lot of them have been associated with gut health now. As a whole, there's so many people doing stuff about gut health and neurological conditions. And people would say, well, you've got to change your diet, you've got to change this. I say just reconnect your vagus nerve. It's just because they're not communicating with each other anymore. So it's not something I've read in a book. It's literally from working with people, and I'm sort of thinking, I wonder how someone's vagus nerve is. I would notice energetically that most people's vagus nerve gets blown out somewhere along the line. How it gets blown out is very different from person to person. I've actually seen someone put little tiny pinpricks effectively through the whole of their vagus nerve, which stops the communication. A lot of people have the brain to heart. It's like there's like a big gap. There's no communication between them, or it can be between your heart and your gut. So somewhere along the line, your vagus nerve on an energetic level gets broken up, the communication gets broken up. I was doing this because Alice was squeezing hers was connected, and she was squeezing it because you were like ringing it the other week, last month, wasn't it? So
it's better now.
Yeah,
it's much better now.
Mine was actually, Sharon, just completely severed, wasn't it? At each end, both ends, done.
Yeah.
And
this is
for 8.5 years, don't anymore, so I'm kind of good. Yeah, really massively.
Yeah, and so we don't know that our vagus nerve isn't connected. Why would we? and it's, well, why does it get disconnected? And the simple answer is stress and trauma.
Trauma, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, from an emotional standpoint, often what happens is we are traumatized by something, we're very upset by something, and it kind of, the body doesn't know what to do, and it doesn't like it, and it's just like literally just blows up, it blows apart. And it's, so what is, trauma and stress comes from the mind effectively, right? It's the way the mind interprets its environment and something that's happening in its environment. And the mind can't always, especially when we're children, it cannot decipher other people's behavior correctly. So sometimes it's been disconnected for a very long time, but you would never know it's disconnected. Right? The only way you might know it is if you've got a problem, you've actually there's a disease or there's a condition that is affecting either those organs, it's usually one of those organs, or just generally, like there are lots of illnesses that do actually stem from the cells not being able to replicate properly, and the reason they're not replicating properly is because the communication between the cells have been disrupted, that simply. So there's a really good reason to reconnect your vagus nerve. Now there are things you can do yourself where, so lots of things have come out of trauma, and also trauma studies, and also out of sort of the somatic kind of alternative health, so movement studies as well. And the guy Stephen Porges, who created polyvagal theory that has really revolutionized everyone's understanding of the vagus nerve, he started to move towards what to do is to do something physical. But again, if it's not connected, what are you doing? So to me, it's like, let's just reconnect the vagus nerve. So that's what we are going to do today. So it is an active process. You will be doing something. I will mute you all so you don't feel embarrassed when we get to it. So I'm just going to describe the process. Nobody else does it this way. I don't think anyone even does it this way, because they don't know this is how you can do it. This is a tuning fork that I had specially made. It's a frequency that is not in any of the tuning fork frequency sets or ones. So I had it specially made because the universe gave me this frequency for my work. So it is a special number. No one else has it. So I will be using the tuning fork. And very simply, what I'll be doing is I will be you'll see me do it. I'll be using the fork and I will be going down everyone's vagus nerve and be reconnecting it, literally reconnecting it using sound. So I'll be using sound and we'll be reconnecting the vagus nerve. And there's two essential extra parts of this. One is that the torus is it's spelled T-O-R-U-S. It's the energetic pattern of the universe, and it goes through your chakras and it goes round you, like a little bit like a butterfly. I like to look at it as a bit of a butterfly. You're the sort of central point, and there's a little butterfly this side and a butterfly that side. But you know, some people say it looks like a weird donut, but you can look it up online. So I'll follow that path of the torus, which is the basic energetic pattern that we all follow as humans. And then I will reconnect everyone into the grid, energetic grid of life as well. So that is a bit more of an abstract thing. That is that when we are not connected with ourselves, we're also not connected with the rest of the world either. We're not connected to life in the same way, because we've kind of blown the connection. So I put everyone back into the energetic grid of life, and that will be at the end of the process. But you have a part to play. So I'm going to give you a sentence that you will be saying out loud while I'm doing all of this. I will mute you so you don't have to hear it. You don't have to hear everyone saying it. You just say it to yourself, but you'll be muted. So I'm going to give you the sentence. If you're terrible with memory, you might want to write it down. Or if you just want to write it down, you can write it down. So the words that you